is Althea Lawton-Thompson.
I am Shawnette McGee.
And today we're going to talk a little bit about healing, how we can come up and out of our own trauma, sometimes our anguish, our challenges. Shawnette is amazing because she is a licensed therapist. And so she works with a lot of different clients, but even when we're working with people to help them heal themselves, we're doing our own healing. And Shawnette has been here to the Soul Space Sanctuary to do some of her personal healing work. And so I asked her if she'd be willing to share how my team, and this space has been a part of her healing journey.
So glad to be here again. It feels like being at home. I'm always happy to be here. I remember my first time coming. I was really nervous. I didn't know what to expect, and I had a lot of expectations.
Okay.
Right. Well, I'm trying not to have any.
What kind of expectations did you have?
So I had been afraid of learning more about myself in a spiritual way.
Okay.
I grew up not so religious, but I grew up knowing about different religions and feeling like I needed to pick one.
Okay.
Right? So I tried to pick one, and I studied several different religions and doctrines, and I always shied away from spirituality. I thought...
Which religion did you choose?
Well, at first I chose Christianity.
Okay.
And then I thought there were so many different denominations, and I really enjoyed the messages and the understanding I got from the Muslim community.
Okay.
But then I realized there was a connection with the Jewish community. And then I studied Rastafarianism.
Okay.
And I just kept going, and I was like, you know what? All of this is the same. It's the same to me with different...
I want you to stop right there.
Okay, I'm sorry.
All of it is the same.
Yes.
Christianity, the Muslim faith, Islam.
Mm-hmm.
Then you went to Judaism, and then Rastafarianism.
Yeah.
What did you find to be the commonality among them?
Love. Love, 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 love. I found the commonality is us, and that the spirit of love is God.
Well, that's it. Thank you for coming. Seriously, though, I think that's the point, that when people get caught up in their one religion and they think this is the one, this is the way, all the others are not right, they're missing that one piece.
Yeah.
Love, and love is God.
Yeah.
Okay, I interrupted, so you keep going.
Fine. So spirituality was scary to me, right?
Okay.
Just anything that wasn't already in the book.
And were you reading all of the different books, the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, all of them?
Emerald tablets, the everything.
Excellent.
Right?
So what was your perception of spirituality that made it seem like it was something separate from what was being preached in the books?
Well, when I was young, like I said, my family itself is not a religious family, but just my environment, I think, just hearing different things, and spirituality was bad. Is what I have been hearing and understanding, that anything outside of the doctrines in the religious groups or sects was a no-no. It was taboo.
For all the religions.
For all.
Even Rastafarianism
absolutely was wrong.
And so what did they think spirituality was?
It was something outside of the one God, and that there was only this one path. And so all these other paths were wrong. Okay,
but didn't Islam believe that God was Allah, and that was different than what Christianity felt, which is Jesus ascended as God?
Which is why there was such great confusion for me.
Oh, I see.
And I thought, well, this can't be right if this is right. And I was looking for what was right. And that is where my journey started, because I felt that I was wrong. And so spiritually, I always had a feeling that I wanted to connect with religion, right? And I always had an identity that I wanted to belong to something. So I was looking. I was going to everybody's church. I went to Jehovah's Witness church. I went to the Seventh-day Adventist church.
Okay.
Yeah, I was looking, seeking. And so once I discovered, like, everybody's right, but still I feel wrong. I remember when I was young, I was told that I was a witch.
Mm.
I was probably 7, maybe younger. But I was told that I was a witch because I had visions. I could see things that nobody else could see. And rather than be called crazy, right, like I'm having hallucinations or delusions, I was told I was a witch. Because of the things that I saw, I would describe them to people and they go, okay, you're a witch. And so based on TV and some of the things I read,
Right.
Scarlet Letter,
Right.
I want to be a witch. So I remember like praying for these gifts to go away, and certainly not wanting to be weird, or I thought this witch that I was just synonymous with evil, and I just didn't
Were
want
the
any part of
visions
it.
considered evil?
Well, some of the visions were premonitions and clairvoyant events that I could see, and sometimes it included death, or sometimes it included someone being injured or sick, and I could see those things. And because I
Didn't
shared
you also see positive things?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw beautiful things, so many things, but it was difficult to explain to others. And just seeing anything that they couldn't see with their eye was considered like
A
you
bad
messing up.
thing.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
In the Bible, a lot of the leaders, both in the Old Testament and the New Testament, were always calling in the seers and the people that had the gift of sight and prophecy. How was your gift any different than, because there were both men and women in the Old Testament that had these gifts that were called on and relied on and seen in a positive light. How is what you were doing different from what was being done in the book in biblical times?
It actually wasn't different. I think it was humanity that created this idea of wrong, right? And created this. And so because of humanity, it's like, well, society is saying that this isn't okay. So then I want to fit in with society.
I understand.
And I need to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this journey is beautiful because it's about being okay with how wonderful I am, how different I am, and the powers that I have. Really being able to embrace the power that I have.
So how did you get here?
Oh, what a wonderful story. So I've been following you on social media for years, and you were my friend in my mind for years. And I kept saying, I'm going to join her on one of her retreats, or, oh, that sounds like an interesting class. I want to be a part of that. Or, what's that about? I want to learn more, right? And I kept saying one day I will, because I thought, I don't see any religion here, so maybe this is wrong, right? Whatever it is, it's probably wrong if it's not already set in a religion. But I was searching and finding myself lost. And then I found a new person. I call her my one.
Okay.
Right? I found my one, and she was already friends with you. And I thought, there's no way that I connect with this person by me saying yes to the universe. I said yes to God. I remember I was going through a depression.
Okay.
And everything in my life seemed to be going great, right? But I was going through a depression trying to figure out my identity and my purpose and all that. And I remember saying, okay, God, yes, to whatever it is you have for me. And then I started following my yeses. And following my yeses led me to my one, right? And then that led me to you.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so I remember our first interaction being with a South American powder called Hape.
Yeah.
You came here for a Hape circle. And part of the Hape ceremony that we do here, following the indigenous way that it's done in South America, is to call on your parents. And the first thing that I said to you once I got you settled and breathing and calm, I remember your face was so peaceful with the breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. And then I touched your shoulder, but I think I touched this shoulder, which represents the father lineage. I didn't start with this shoulder, with the mother lineage. And I calmly said, say your father's name. And you were very silent. Your whole body went still. and you just kind of half smiled, like, but you didn't say anything.
Yeah.
And I asked you again. I don't think you said a name that first time.
I did not. I didn't know what to expect, right? I had read about Hape, and so I came with no expectation, right? But I didn't know what to expect. I did not know what to expect. I didn't even know what my intentions were. I just knew I wanted to be able to accept all of me, right? So I was open. And in doing that, you asked me my father's, and I'm just like, this lady is asking me, why are you gonna ask me that? Because while we all have mothers and fathers, I grew up without my dad present, and so much so that I never addressed him in any way. I may have seen him a number of times in my life, and I never called him dad. I never called him pops or his name, or I didn't even know what to. Like, and I thought, why would you ask me that? Like, we're starting the ceremony and I have no answer to give, because I don't even, my thought in that moment was like, I don't even have a father. I don't have a father, is what.
This is the interesting thing about this. I had done a training earlier that day for facilitators learning how to serve Hape. And I remember saying, you should bring in the father lineage and bring in the mother lineage. And prior to the journey I did with you, I did not ask out loud father's name, mother's name every time. Sometimes I would just be talking to myself and saying, I'm so grateful for the line of mothers and the mothers' mothers and the fathers' mothers that brought this being in front of me. That's my inner talk as I'm touching their shoulders and moving energy so that there's no blockages that could come from those lines. Something about sitting in front of you, following what I was guided to do, said, ask her to say her father's name. The same thing happened actually when I asked you to say your mother's name. Again, you just smiled and you didn't say anything. I asked you a second time, you didn't say anything, and I went ahead with the rest of the process, bringing in the one God, the oneness that is God. And I usually say the one, universe, because people come from so many different religious backgrounds. I want to be respectful of everyone's religion. Spirituality to me does not mean something demonic or negative, so I'm always interested to hear people's perspectives. But when I come to the space over someone's head, I'm addressing the one. Whether you call that God, Allah, Jah, Jehovah, one. And then I bring in the person's heart back to love, where we started, and themselves. And they have to say their name with force, with a belief in who they are, bringing together all of these pieces, these elements that create them. And so you were fine when I got to the one and I said to say your name. But then what happened after that once I served the medicine?
It was the best ever. So it's not long ago that this ceremony occurred. So I was almost this many years old.
Just a few months.
Yeah, just a little bit. I had a birthday. So what happened was the most miraculous thing. I got parents. Now I know how that sounds. Like you grown, you had parents already. But I lived my life as an orphan. No disrespect to my mother or father, but because of the way I grew up, I was separated from my family of origin. And I did grow up a part of my life in the system. And I just felt like I didn't have parents. I lived that way, even as an adult, and seeking relationships, adult relationships, and getting married to try and find family, to try to, get your mama and your daddy to be my parents. But that day, so let me tell you what happened. So that day, in the journey, my parents came to me. My mother and my father, they came to me, both. Now, they had not been together since I was about 2, so just seeing them together in that way, or feeling them together. They came to me and they walked with me. And they walked me to what appeared to be like an altar. I think we might have walked outside.
We were outside.
We went outside, yeah. And when we got to the fire pit, we stopped, and there was music. My mother loved to dance. I think my father enjoyed music from what I remember, but in this moment, they danced with me. And I mean, when I tell you, we danced. We danced, it was joyful. And in that moment, I was able to, for the first time ever, call my father anything. And I called him Dad. And it was like, it was right. It was like, yeah, I have a dad. And then I'm like, I have a mom. I got parents. And I think I came in like, I got parents.
She did. And we have circles.
Yeah.
So when it's done, everybody's having their experience with the hape, and whatever comes afterwards, there's tears, there's laughter, there's dancing, there's just needing to lay down and go to sleep. Everybody responds differently, and each time is different for each person. So when it was Shanette's turn, it was, I got parents.
Yes.
And I think everybody in the circle just felt it and was so joyful for you. Shanette started to cry, but there were other people crying. Like everybody was crying, but it wasn't a sad crying. It was like we were all coming through that portal with you into the joy and the connection and the remembrance and the acceptance, and whatever had been blocking that, it's like it came down.
Yeah.
And then it's almost like the beginning of a new journey.
The absolute beginning of a new journey, because once I accepted parents, then I absolutely belonged somewhere. Like this life journey of not belonging and looking to see where I could fit in. I come from somewhere, like I have parents and they love me. And while they weren't there, I felt in my life, my entire life, I felt in the journey, we are here with you.
Yeah. Now, are those biological parents deceased?
They are both deceased.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you were in the system, were you eventually adopted?
I was not. I was too old at the time once I entered to be adopted. So it was foster care, group homes, and then independent living, and then I became an emancipated minor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So who were you living with prior to being 18 and entering the system?
Well, I was living with my mom. I was living in a home that was abusive.
Okay.
And I was removed from the home. And then, but being removed from the home, it also removed me from the remainder of my family.
Yeah.
And so I was outside of my family, moved away from my friend groups, couldn't go to the same school, and I felt lost. And, you know, being a ward of the court, then that's your parent on paper, your documentation, whether you're, you know, enrolling in school or some emergency contact. Your parent is the ward of you're a ward of the state. And so my parent was the state of New York, which I love New York, I love my home, but I wanted parents, you know. I didn't want ward of the court on every document. Even when I became an adult and going to college and just doing anything, you still list that you're a ward of the court. That's your legal parent. You know, my parents had signed their parental rights. So I was adopted by the state, right?
Gotcha.
In that way. And that was tough, like just not having family as holidays go on. I mean, I was able to reconnect with my family of origin, but I always felt like an outsider, and I always felt like I don't really belong here. So that day, recognizing I have parents, I belong, it just changed everything. It changed my perception of myself, right? Because, like, you know how there's a saying, a face only a mother could love, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't have a mother who loves you, or if you don't have a mom, then are you lovable? And I think I had a lot of challenges with that. And, you know, accepting myself, if my own parents didn't accept me, is what I thought. But that day, I felt accepted. I belong. I'm loved. And I could forgive in that moment them not being there. And I could recognize and feel like they did the best that they could do. And I'm so grateful for that. You know, like a little bit that for me it wasn't enough. It was everything that they had. And that feels so good to know They loved me enough to give me everything that they had. And I mean, so now I started to see the whole world differently. You know, it's like, well, I belong, so I do deserve things that I didn't think I deserved. Or, you know, I am okay, like I'm enough. Because I didn't feel enough. You don't have parents, like you weren't enough. And I do have siblings, you know, and I'm like, well, they had parents and I didn't. What's wrong with me? You know, I dealt with that. So I felt for the first time like I belong.
What changed for you in how you parent?
Oh boy, that's such a good, wonderful question. It changed everything. I was able to be more compassionate with myself about the parent that I am. Like looking at my own parents and my life and experience, recognizing they did their best, knowing I've done my best, but I can't show my kids that so much. Sometimes I mess up. And I felt really guilty about not having what I needed to give them what they needed. Right? So in some ways, I felt like I was repeating a cycle of raising children who were not getting everything that they needed.
But you were doing the best that
I was doing the best that I could. But once I realized I belong, then it just removed the standard that I had. It removed the right or wrong way to do things. I was able to accept me, flaws and all the mistakes, all the muck-ups and mess-ups. And I'm happy about the parent that I am. And I'm able to be more honest and authentic with them, my kids, as opposed to trying to be what I think I should be.
Now you have a young child who's still in elementary or middle school, right?
She's elementary.
In elementary school, but then you also have young adult children as well.
Yeah.
How do you see the changes that have been happening with you over the last few months playing out in how you interact with that elementary school young lady?
Well, one thing is the biggest thing I think that I'm most grateful about and excited about is that I'm able to share with her what spirituality is.
Okay, now this is powerful.
Yeah, I raised my first daughter. She was with me through my church hopping. So there was a lot of doctrine that I know I gave to her, and it was a lot of hand wagging. A lot of punishment, a lot of fear.
Hell and damnation.
Fire and brimstone. And a lot of fear, and that really did shape the way that I lived my life. I was afraid to do anything that I felt didn't align with what was right. I mean, really afraid. Anxiety through the roof. And so I was then able to, even with my oldest daughter, accept her by realizing, as a parent, you go, I raised my kids this way, and this is the way that you should be. And I was able to see all of them as individuals recognize their own journeys are theirs.
Yeah, because our kids just come through us.
Yeah.
We're not really doing a lot except keeping them safe and sound and giving them space to figure out why they're here on this earth.
That was big. The space that my journey helped me to give them. Space that I don't have the same standards I had for them, because I had these standards and standards I had for myself, what kind of mom I was supposed to be. But now I'm able to allow them to be who they are, and I'm able to encourage them to be authentic. Meaning, my youngest daughter, she's wonderful. They all are wonderful. I remember with my oldest two, I would try to contain them in some ways. Society's gonna think something's wrong with you, girl. Go sit down, or don't say that. Don't talk to yourself out loud. They're gonna hear you. Those kinds of things. With my youngest daughter, she has all the freedom to express herself in any way. But just recently, a couple months ago, because this journey is a process.
It's a journey. That's why it's called a journey.
So it's step by step. So just a couple, maybe some months ago, I recognized I had been admonishing her sorely about running around with no shoes on her feet. And why you can't have no shoes on your feet. You need to put some shoes on your feet. Well,
and now
that I love to go outside, let my toes hit the ground and play in the dirt.
Because now we've been grounding.
We've been grounding, and I recognize the importance of grounding. And connecting with nature. And she was this little 2-3-year-old who would want to go sit out in the yard and sunbathe.
Yes.
And I'm like, get your butt in the house, put some clothes. What are you what are you doing? But now I get it. And it's like you don't have to wear shoes or socks.
Mm-hmm. And
I
there's
understand.
healing from the sun, and there's healing from the moonlight,
and energy,
trees,
and love, and connectivity. And so she's able to enjoy that. And I'm teaching her about her body, in a different way. She's learning about her chakras, and she's learning about, she's learning meditation, and, with prayer, how to manifest. And
that's
people,
right.
let me say something real quick. I'm gonna say this to the folks out there in TV land. So when people, not everybody, but when some people, and I was one of them, heard the word manifestation or manifest, that sounded like some kind of witchcraft. It sounded like a spell was happening, and it was evil, right? And
I did not know that.
Many people, and I recognize even with social media, where you have more and more influencers who are sharing about spirituality, and they're talking about having power. This is the same power in the tongue that we've read about in many of the sacred books. But for some reason, when we hear manifestation, it's like a taboo.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of people take it that way. And I recognize it just when I said it, because my awareness went, people are going to think some kind of and I want to say, think what you will. Manifestation is, to me, synonymous with prayer. It is exactly speaking, making what it is you want, making your supplications known.
That's right.
Having the expectation and being receptive to receiving, and being thankful because you already got it. That is what it is, right? So manifesting, she's able to do that. Meditation, I used to think meditation was about quieting your mind, which I was never able to do. You probably could tell.
Most people cannot do that, at least not right away. It does take some practice.
Well, it's here in this space that I learned to truly meditate and recognize it's not about clearing your mind. It's really about accepting what is. It's not like, these thoughts, let me throw the grocery list away, right? It's like, I'm thinking about carrots. Yes, we do need more carrots, and that's okay.
And that's okay.
That's okay, not
being
judging.
very present to what is happening, what you are thinking. That's absolutely it.
And in that, I was able to focus on what I wanted to focus on, whether that was my breathing or the air around me or the scent that I smell or the energy that I feel. And before I knew it, it was like 2 hours had passed, and I said, I did it.
You did it. Because you weren't forcing yourself to do something that wasn't natural.
Yeah.
And then chastising yourself when you couldn't do it.
That is the biggest part, the judgment, right? Judging myself for wanting to do something outside of what was familiar, and then judging myself about how I was doing it and whether or not it was right. And so I realized I was still following the constructs of my former life, pre-journey.
Yeah.
Where, you got to do things a certain way, or you're going to be in trouble. And so a lot of the fear and anxiety that I've had in my life has been because of religion. And being able to be free from that and recognize who I am, then there's no right or wrong. There are experiences.
That's it. And then what are we going to do with those experiences? What are we going to do with the outcome of the things we put in motion? Talk a little bit about the journey after that first Hape session. So you've done Hape since then. What were your subsequent experiences once you knew what to expect?
So once I got parents, the next time I came, I told myself I don't have any expectations, and I didn't, but I did have intention. My intention was to be able to accept all of my powers. Okay. Right? To no longer be afraid. As I said when I was young, I prayed that the dreams would go away, the visions that I had would go away, the knowing. Sometimes I could touch a person
and know things
immediately. And I didn't want that. I didn't know what to do with it. I thought it was wrong.
And I just want to tell our audience that's called clairtangency. When you can touch something and know something about it, about a person. It could be an inanimate object or a sentient being. You might smell something, taste something, hear something, see a vision that's related to that object or that person. And so clairtangency is what she's referring to.
Thank you. So I would do this, and I thought, I don't want it anymore. Well, when I came on the next journey, I wanted it all.
Okay.
I wanted all of me.
Mm-hmm.
And without judgment or criticism, accepting all of me. And once I had set that intention, then it started happening. I remember there was a sound bath given on one of the days, and I'm probably getting them here.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely here.
Did we do the singing bowls or tuning forks?
They were the bowls.
Okay, the bowls.
They were the bowls.
Mm-hmm.
The wonderful bowl player, Adrian.
I remember that.
I love her. She's playing the bowls. And I thought, what beautiful music. Learning more about frequencies and how music is medicine. Mm-hmm. And music is so much of everything, right? And a part of us. And so I'm enjoying the sound. And the next thing I know, I look up and I see a beautiful white veil. And it was so very clear, this white curtain. I thought, wow, how lovely that they placed this beautiful curtain here. I thought it was really adding to the ambiance, and it was just beautiful. And then nobody else saw the curtain. Nobody else saw the curtain.
And I think if I remember correctly, you were like, it was so nice that you had that white curtain. And no, we didn't.
No, it was. You did. Curtain. It was there. Who found it? And then everybody's like, there's no curtain. Well, it was in that moment that I recognized my intentions had been set, and that I manifested what I was expecting to happen, that my powers were coming back.
Yeah. That
my eyes could see again.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see things that are not seen. And not be ashamed about it.
That's
or not
right.
feel like, oh, when Pastor hear about this, what's going to happen to me.
Okay, so then how do we reconcile that Jesus had abilities that other apostles also had?
That's exactly what I was able to do. I recognize, created in the image of God, I am. Created in the image of the Creator. Having all that the Creator has, not some. Being both male and female, I am. Having all powers, power to heal, power to raise the dead, as did Jesus.
Because there's other people within the Bible that did that and had the ability. So I'm always confused when I have the conversations. And I think people consider, if somebody is spiritual and they say, well, I don't fit within the box of Judaism or Rastafarianism or Christianity, they think, oh, well, then you must be a witch or a demonic person. Yeah. No, I actually read all of the books. I see the unity in all of them because I can point to different stories and talk about the number 7, for instance, and how the power in that number. But if I say numerology to somebody, they think that that's evil.
Or even when it comes to astrology, you mentioned a little bit ago about enjoying the sun.
Astrology is such a huge part of the Bible and Jesus' birth.
And nature, when we think about the almanac, or when we think about
all of it.
The ebb and flow of the waves, right? The harvest, all of it. And we're a part of all of it. The water in us.
Absolutely.
And our menses for women,
that's
right?
Completely
connected with the lunar cycle. So I think it was not so much the sacred books as much as it was some of the leadership.
Yeah, and what they're conditioning and teaching to the congregation, which carries on. Because this has been going on for generations. What do you think about the fact that a lot of people from the African diaspora believe that Christianity has been used as a part of the slave trade and then enslaving our minds when we were physically free?
I totally understand it and agree with it myself. It took some time to recognize it. Well, I was a young girl, and as I said, my family wasn't religious, but I was very curious, an avid reader, and I started reading every book that there was written. And I remember my first issue where I found some incongruence with reading the Genesis story about the Garden of Eden. And I was fortunate that my little Bible had a map in it.
Okay.
And that map happened to be in Egypt somewhere. But then the Jesus on the fan at the church that I was trying to go to
doesn't look like the people that would come from that region.
And then I thought about this. I thought, there are people who don't speak English. There are people who do not read or write. And so, do they not go to heaven because they're not able to read the scripture? Or because they didn't get to go to the church? And the God that I know and believe in, that just wouldn't be the case. Because that would be so many people. Think about how many children are unlearned, if you will, in terms of literacy. And so, what are they going to do? How would they know? I knew that it wasn't about the book then. And then I knew that all the contradictions that were there didn't make sense to me. Like, what kind of God is this?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that when I started to look into, well, what did we do before we got the book? Then it was beautiful. But I'm really proud about how knowledgeable our ancestors are and have been with medicine, with everything. I mean, even when you think about the slave trade, the slave owners did not know how to farm. And so it was our ancestors who even taught them about how to farm and to read the seasons and to understand all the things about nature. When I think about the indigenous people and the way that they lived with the earth.
Yeah, as one.
As one, and prospered. And then, of course, some folks came along and took that away and put them on a little spot and gave them liquor.
Or they even brought in their illness because they weren't really clean.
Exactly. And the way that they eat, their diet. And most importantly, what I want to bring up is that they demonized, weaponized, and crucified the spiritual practices of the people.
Of all the indigenous cultures.
People. And so when we talk about hape and other plant medicines, I'm talking about, right now I have a garden. This is something that started after my journey.
Okay.
I like plants, but I have a full garden. I've got vegetables, I've got herbs and things like that. And it's just like, we did this, you know, you got a sore throat, get some of this, get some of that. So I accept myself as a medicine woman. And I would have never done that because that was taboo. Like being a shaman, that was taboo. Any hoodoo or voodoo or any way of using nature or something that's not religion was considered wrong. And so the subsequent journey was, I want all my powers.
Yeah.
And so I'm learning even more, and I'm able to use more, and more is happening. So I'm growing, and yeah, it's wonderful, wonderful healing for myself and others.
I know that both of us, as people that assist others in their healing journey, we have our own rough times with our own self. Yeah. What are some of your techniques for when you're at home with yourself and you're going through one of those moments where you're down, or how do you bring yourself back?
I'm so glad you asked that, because I was actually dealing with that. And so one of the things that I'm able to do now after being here, I'm able to be open with my relationship with nature. And the trees just love me, y'all.
The trees
they love me.
Back.
They Charnette, come through. They always want me over there. And so I'm able to go and talk to the trees, touch the tree, hug the tree, sit by the tree.
Isn't it crazy how it revives you to literally just sit or touch a tree? And it doesn't have to be that long.
Yeah, just really touch a tree. Or even sometimes I commune with the tree. I may not be near, and I may go, hey there, I see you over there treeing with your tree self. You know, because that's how me and the trees do. We talk like that. And it's just beautiful to be connected again, belonging. I belong. I remember once I was feeling really down after starting the journey, and I think you called me. You just reached out and you said, I'm thinking about you. I was honest with you and shared what I was going through. And I was in my yard attempting to ground, but I was all over the place.
Yeah, mentally.
Mentally, I was not able to focus on grounding. And I remember there was an indentation in my yard. I said,
Okay.
there's a hole in the yard. I know what that's about. And you said, why don't you stand in it? That's my whole yard. I go sit in the hole when I'm feeling down. You know, touching the trees, digging in the dirt, that is my energy. Being kissed by the sun, even when it's cold outside, like,
Especially when it's
yeah,
cold outside.
I go out there and I allow the sun to kiss my skin. The same with the moon. Sometimes I'll go out. I didn't start walking with the moon until our 10-10 experience.
Okay.
Yeah, thank
when
you
I
so
talked
much.
about
Yeah. And so I go out and I talk to the moon and I walk with the moon. And try this, people. The moon will walk with you.
It does.
The moon, I said, how you get over here? We started back there. And here you are. The moon will walk with
It
you.
moves as you're moving.
It's beautiful. So I've been able to do things like that. But in addition to it, I recognize I still need connecting with people.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm able to either, if I'm too deep in the hole and I can't reach out to my tribe intuitively reaches out to me. They're sending me love and energy. And they're healing me with that love. And, you know, I could wake up the next day and feel a little bit better, a little bit better.
And you know something has been done that
I
you
didn't
weren't doing.
Yeah.
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 And we know that some of that is also spirit or God perception, right?
Yeah.
That it knows what we need. That goes back to the prayer. That goes back to the meditation.
I have some meditation that I do. I do yoga. I do stretches. I dance. Oh,
Dancing. Dancing, music, and singing. Something about moving and frequency and vibration, that lifts the spirit immediately.
If you can't sing, don't worry about it. Hum.
I agree
Sound.
with that.
Breathing exercises I do. Sometimes I'll light a candle. I know baths are helpful. Being in water, even if it's a shower.
That's right.
Yeah. Walking. Resting. Being compassionate to myself.
Yeah.
Is important too. And then what I love is I'm learning new things too. You know, it might be making a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Or, you know, it's just different things, but I'm learning to trust myself and follow my intuition, my spirit, and know that there is no wrong way. That's the biggest thing that I'm learning. There's no wrong way. Sometimes I need therapy, and I have a therapist.
That's right.
And therapy is good.
Therapy
and sometimes
is good.
it is being alone. Sometimes it's connecting with
Yeah.
people that you love. I love you.
I love you too. And I appreciate you for being vulnerable and being honest, because there's no telling who's watching this that's going to be touched by the conversation that we've had. Thank you, Shanette.
You're welcome.